on a sunny and gorgeous Thursday morning. Welcome on into the bullpen, everyone. I'm Adam the Bull. He's Dustin Fox, and we've got a lot to get to today. Coming up in about 10 minutes, Zac Jackson, the best in the business, covering the Browns for The Athletic. He's going to join us live. What did he see in the open portion of not training camp, but
Minicamp.
Minicamp. Thank you. Couldn't think of the right word there for a second.
No problem.
Dustin, how you doing? What's going on?
I'm doing well, man. Just hanging out here. Actually slept in a little bit this morning. I was up late last night. I was up till like 2 o'clock in the morning. My son
slept in. You don't sleep in anymore ever. This is inappropriate.
I slept in until 8:15.
Wow.
My son was up till like 2 o'clock in the morning, deep cleaning his bedroom.
What?
He's like OCD now. All of a sudden, he's like my brother, who will loves cleaning.
Yeah.
So now my son, he's like scrubbing his room down and cleaning under the bed, and it was like, okay.
And this needed to happen in the middle of the night, apparently.
I mean, it's a little OCD.
Yeah. All right.
So
I can appreciate that. I'm certainly OCD myself.
Positive.
Yeah, better he's cleaning his room than like leaving pizza under the bed, you know? I'd rather him be doing that. And I'm a little OCD myself, so I can appreciate some good OCD. So there you go. But for those who don't know, and I'm sure most people at this point do, Dustin is getting married next weekend. Not this coming weekend, but the following weekend. I'll be officiating the wedding. And it's going to be a fun event. We're all looking forward to it. And are you nervous at all?
Am I nervous at all? Not really. I'm kind of like, I've got a little anxiety about the weather. That's my biggest issue right now because it's an outdoor wedding, which we have, contingency plans to move it inside if it has to be moved inside. But dude, I'm freaking out. You are like the king of like looking at the advanced 10-day weather forecast. Yeah. Bro, every second I'm checking this thing. Like next Friday, it looks like it's going to be, great on Friday. Saturday, 40% chance of rain.
Yeah. You know what the thing is, though?
I know.
And you're right. I obsess about the weather all the time, and I look ahead. I'm studying the hourly forecast because I got a Little League game tonight, so I'm like, are we going to get this game in? But the reality is, even though I rarely admit this because I obsess about it, is that the weather until like a day before is highly unpredictable, especially in this part of the country. And you're obviously, for those who don't know, Dustin lives, you don't live in Cleveland. You live in the Akron area. So you're not right on the lake like we are up here in Rocky River. But still, the lake just can change. The winds off the lake and stuff can push these storms north and south sometimes. And there could be a rain in the forecast, and then you get nothing, and vice versa. It happens all the time. It's hard to predict.
We have this like weird pocket where we – like sort of like where we live in Fairlawn.
Yeah.
And where the club is at, where we're having the wedding.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's like this weird pocket because they could say that there's going to rain. Like, I know this from golfing, right? I mean, or tennis, outdoor tennis. It's like they could say it's going to rain 100%. And you look at the radar and like sometimes there's just like a little pocket around the club. It's like doesn't get rain. Yeah. It's weird. These scattered storms, I'm just praying and hopeful that the weather holds out. And I know you're going to do a great job. I'm excited about that. It's funny. People are like, when they ask me about like who's doing the wedding and stuff, and I'm like, Bull's doing it, and they're like stunned for a second because that is a little unique, right? You got to admit.
Sure.
But like for me, when I say it, I'm like, I say it with such confidence because I know like how talented you are at all this stuff and just how good you are at just entertaining. And it's like it was the easiest decision ever to pick you to do it because you're amazing at that stuff.
Well, I appreciate it, but it's your day and it's her day. It's really the wife's day. I mean, more than anything else. But
this is my second wedding, so this is her first.
And so I think part of the reason you probably have anxiety about the weather is because you want it to be perfect for her.
For sure.
And we had an outdoor wedding when I got married to my wife in October in New Jersey in 2010.
You cheap bastard.
What do you mean?
I'm kidding. The October weddings are a little cheaper.
Well, it just, you know what?
But it's got to be so expensive in New York.
It is crazy expensive. And we didn't purposely do an October wedding, but
something opened up, right? Didn't you say
something opened up and they were like, do you want to take it? And if we didn't, if we didn't, we'd have to wait another 6 months, and we didn't want to wait, or 8 months
Right.
even. But anyway, we planned for an outdoor wedding. We had the contingency plan, and we got very lucky. It was like 75 and sunny in late October
Yeah.
in New Jersey, which, like here, it could be 30 or it could be 80, so you never know. But it's going to be great either way. Even if for some chance you have to end up indoors, and it's a really nice club, obviously, so it's going to work out either way. But it's exciting, and it'll
Very
be a
excited.
fun
about
time
it.
next
Dude,
weekend.
Last night.
Yeah.
So the seating chart thing is a whole
that's a huge thing, dude.
Dude, it's a big deal. And we didn't do the seating chart until yesterday.
I know. Well, we talked yesterday, and you said you were doing it, that is a big deal. Now, did you put the UCSS people on one table and 92.3 the fan people at another, or is there not, or is there?
That's sort of how it ended up.
Yeah. That's what I figured.
That's sort of how it ended up. Yeah.
Because it's just too many to put everybody together.
Yeah, I mean, I've got I think we have, including you, 4 people from UCSS coming, and then 3 or 4 from the radio coming. So
right.
With their spouses, it wouldn't have been perfect to put them all together because the tables are for 10 people.
Right. That was, well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of schmoozing at the wedding. There's no doubt about it. All right, let's get to some sports stuff here. Obviously, Zac Jackson is going to join us in a couple minutes. We'll talk about the Browns. In fact, Zac Jackson. Let's bring Zac right now. Why wait another 3 minutes? Zac, are you ready for Dustin's wedding next weekend?
My wife and I just walked the dog, and we're talking about that. So
yes.
We're going to arm wrestle later to see who drives home.
Zac, Bull's officiating the wedding, right?
I did not. That's good. Yeah, I like that.
Now,
it's going to be great.
I mean, Zac, you could just get somebody else to drive, and then you both could not drive. I mean,
it's close. It's close enough that we will have a safe plan. I promise.
Oh, that's true. You live down in that area too. I forgot.
Yeah, not far at all. We'll stop at Swenson's on the way home. It'll be perfect.
Why would you stop at Swenson's on the way home, Zac, when the Swenson's food truck is already booked to come to Fairlawn Country Club?
No, is that part of the wedding?
10 o'clock.
You're kidding.
Well, my bedtime is 9:15, so yeah, that's good.
No, I think it's coming at 9:45. Dead serious. We already booked it.
Oh,
true story. Our good friends that live on the other side of the neighborhood had the Swenson's food truck for Father's Day last year for a big party. And my father-in-law lives on the same street. And he wasn't invited to the party, but he just came on down and helped himself to the food truck.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a bold move. That sounds like the plot for the next Wedding Crashers movie or something.
I mean, I think he was just hungry. I don't think he was trying to really offend anyone, and he didn't. But
did anybody realize?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because they were kind of wrapping up. Like the rest of the party had moved to the backyard, and then there was this man that they hadn't seen in the previous 3 hours that they were there making an order.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Zac, on a much less important note, let's talk about the Browns in minicamp, because every conversation about Browns minicamp is filled with controversy, because all the fans have picked their camps of who they want to be the quarterback. Right. And you tell it like it is better than anybody when it comes to this stuff. Obviously, you nailed it last year when everybody else was saying Watson was looking good. So everybody's hanging on your thoughts right now. That's the reality. I'm not joking. They want to know what you see. Especially, of course, when it comes to the rookies. So what did you see? I mean, as much as you can see at this point.
Yeah, so yesterday, OTA 5 and Open OTA 2 was a reminder that it's not really controversial, that it's really just football practice. It was ugly, right? There were two, in 11 on 11s, there were 2 passes of more than 5 yards completed. That's just how it went. And sometimes the check down is what they're supposed to take, right? And what we don't know sitting there watching, is this the 3rd time they're running this play? Is there a read they're supposed to go to? Or especially for the rookies, did this just get installed yesterday morning and they're coming out here with the first time? And the thing about yesterday, I'm not going to say, wow, it was awful. I mean, it was. But there was one NFL receiver on the field, Jerry Jeudy. The rest of, Tillman was out with what we assume is a minor injury. Michael Woods, who's a borderline NFL player, was out with a minor injury. Deontay Johnson is not there. So, these undrafted rookie receivers who are in camp, to get a shot, but really just to facilitate the quarterback competition, they were getting triple the reps. They're getting double the reps. They were getting triple the reps. So just wasn't a lot to see. And there hasn't been. So, by the end of this week, that'll be 6 OTAs down. Then they're into mandatory minicamp, where the days are a little longer, where they start to regurgitate stuff rather than install. Where David Njoku's back, who's gonna get 100 targets or maybe 200, depending on
Yeah.
who the quarterback is, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll see more. But as far as what we saw yesterday, nothing that would change anyone's early conclusion or prior thought on anything.
Zach, when you look at these quarterbacks, specifically the rookies, and you and I've talked offline about this. We've talked about it on the air. It's just amazing to me. Number one, that they drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round,
Uh-huh.
and then it's even more amazing. Not that they take another quarterback. I get that, but that they take like the most popular quarterback in the draft. How's this whole thing playing out in camp right now with the team, with the players? Like, is it going to be like able to work out going into training camp?
Well, it has to be awkward, Dustin.
Yeah, right?
And it is. And like, look, if I always say if they like Gabriel, and they do, they took him in the top 100 picks, they've completely undercut him on and off the field by adding another quarterback and adding
Yeah.
this one. So, I think the answer right now is that it's business as usual and it's early orientation football practice. But come the first week of August, they have to pick an order and they have to decide who's first and who they're getting ready to play. And they have to decide based on what they see, right? Who's going to get to play in the preseason? Who's going to get opportunities in the joint practices? And it's not just right now it's just opportunities, Dustin. But
Yeah.
then it's not. Then it really matters who you're with, because if you're Shador Sanders and you're 4th, you're playing with all XFL guys and undrafted free agents. That's just the reality. So as you earn those reps, if you get to play a quarter or 2 quarters with the twos in a preseason game or in Philly in a joint practice, which is as competitive as a situation as you can get, the opportunity you have to really succeed and really be evaluated is just magnified so much by the better players who are in there, right? So all 90 count, and guys do come from everywhere. Not a lot of guys go from player 88 to making $80 million, but every year guys join the roster and make the team. And for quarterbacks, it's always different. How they're evaluated is different. How this thing is viewed is different. And how this thing is viewed is the story, right? So right now, next week, I do expect to see better quarterback play. I do expect to see a little better from the offense. But in terms of what I really want to see or really can make a conclusion upon, we're a couple months from that, because after next week, they go away for 6 months. 6
Zach,
weeks, excuse me.
6
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zach, it seems like there's competing philosophies, if you will, in when it comes to the Browns. I don't know. You tell me, what's true and what's not. So it feels like the coach and GM should be worried about their jobs because they haven't had enough success. They won 3 games last year. They've been here plenty of time. And yet the way they drafted this past year makes you think they're not worried about their jobs. They passed on most likely the best talent in the draft to make a trade that potentially sets them up for next year. Then they went and drafted 2 quarterbacks, and you feel like, well, we got to see what they got.
Yeah.
And how much will that play a role in what they draft next year? So what's true, what's not here?
Yeah, it's a great question, Bull. I mean, I think it's 100% safe to say that this is an awkward intersection between needing to move forward, right? And having your best players all either already over 30 or hitting 30 and making a lot of money. And some of them worth every penny and some of them not, quite frankly.
Yep.
And I think the thing that's really been overlooked since the second Shador was selected on that Saturday afternoon is this draft started with a move to get next year's number 1. And so the ultimate winner of this quarterback competition is probably next year's first round pick, right? That's the reality. However, I want to dismiss one thing. The thought that Joe Flacco being here is a waste of time, because to me that is completely untrue, and that's a completely outside argument. Inside, Joe Flacco brings 18 years of experience. He's seen everything in this league. He's been to the mountaintop. He's been to the bottom. He's been down 14 within 2 minutes in Cleveland Brown Stadium and won the game, right?
Yeah.
So what I think, will continue to bring is getting guys in the right place, getting in guys' asses, and bringing a command and an idea and an example of what this offense is supposed to look like. So should he win the job? Does he win the job? To me, yes. What other factors go in? Does he eventually get outplayed? Does he not hold up because he's 40 years old? Maybe. But I think the importance of Joe Flacco right now, and specifically in August, in getting this offense where it needs to go, when a lot of 20-some-year-old guys, early 20s guys, are going to have to play on this offense, even if it's not in September, I think that's really valuable. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think Joe Flacco will and should be the starting quarterback of this team to start the season. Where it goes from there, Bull, we're right back to that awkward intersection, and it could go 100 different ways.
Zach, when it comes to Flacco, if let's say they have another one of those magical runs like they did a couple of years ago, where they do go to the playoffs, like, are the Browns locked into thinking about the first round pick next year, or do they, like, in terms of late in the year, will they go to one of these rookies to give them experience, or will
Yeah,
they say, hey, we're winning, like, what do we need to win right
yeah.
now, like let's not worry about the draft pick.
No, I mean, Dustin, if they're winning, if they're a game out of the playoffs on December 1st, and that's because Joe Flacco's playing well, then Joe
Yeah.
Flacco's playing, right?
Right.
Now, the moment they're out of contention or the moment he's not available, I
Here
don't
comes your
know.
DTR game. Here comes your
Yeah.
Bailey Zappi.
Well, Joe is
know?
only under contract for this year, and Kenny Pickett's only under contract for this year.
Yeah.
So there's the quarterback is down the road, right? But does it have to be those picks? And also, are those picks number 4 and number 12? Or are those picks number 12 and number 26?
Right.
It seems wild, but I don't know. Jacksonville's in the worst division in football, probably, or second worst division. If Trevor Lawrence finally plays to his draft position, why couldn't they win a bunch of games? And it's not a bad gamble to think that they might not win any games because they have a really heavily paid roster that hasn't done anything yet. They had to fire the coach. They had to fire everyone. So we'll see. That is something to watch. But I mean, look, in the ideal world here passed a long time ago, specifically 2 summers ago when it became obvious that Watson couldn't play a lick, right? In an ideal world, whichever veteran wins the job would play well, and you would have a season where you're competitive and you're evaluating the young guys, but you're winning, you're trying to compete. The moment you're not in contention, you play one of the young kids or maybe both of them. I don't know. And then you see, because you do have to know. But I think it's way too early to say, even if you said, okay, next year they're going to have the 6th pick and the 12th pick, I think it's way too early to say it has to be a quarterback. It has to be a left. It has to be this, because this could go so many different ways. And there's so many different factors involved with it.
Zach, I think there's a feeling from some fans that I guess it doesn't matter. Both sides of the fan base have their arguments, but do you believe that Dillon Gabriel, when they do go to the rookies, whether it's late in the season or not, is Dillon Gabriel likely to get the first crack because he was higher and obviously they thought more of him, or does it have to do with who plays best in the preseason and training camp?
Yeah, probably both, Bull. Like right now, it's zero surprise that he's the one getting the nibble of the snaps with the ones, and he's the first in line, or the third in line. When they're in one line, or the first in line when they split them off. If he gets outplayed, then that changes quickly. So we'll see. Just watching practice right now and just watching the throw, there is a clear best thrower. It's Joe Flacco by a million, and there's a clear worst thrower, and it's Dillon Gabriel. So what that means for the guys in the middle, or what they're really seeing, I don't know. What do we see from Dillon Gabriel? We see the quick release. We see the accuracy, get rid of the ball to the outside. I just don't see him having the arm talent or the overall ability to make the throws that we've seen Shedeur make. Now, has Shedeur made him under rush? Has Shedeur made him against guys who are ever going to play an NFL down? In most cases, no. It's a couple of weeks. We'll see. Yeah. But just standing there watching practice, there's Joe, who, to no one's surprise, looks way better than everyone. And Gabriel looks, to me, a distant fourth.
Fair.
Yeah. How tiny is Dillon Gabriel in person?
Extremely. Not even on the DeJuan Jones scale, just on standing next to anyone else.
Like is he, I don't know, compared to Baker Mayfield, size-wise?
Baker, yeah, he's markedly shorter than Baker was, just standing there watching.
Wow.
Okay.
So what's more noticeable, Dillon Gabriel's height or Kenny Pickett's hands?
Kenny Pickett's hands, probably.
Wow.
We're not seeing like a lot. Like when they jog the warm-ups and you look to see who's first, and Dillon Gabriel's second and Flacco's third, like Flacco's legit 6'5", right? Yeah. But when you're like watching practice, Kenny's hands are honestly more noticeable.
That's so funny. Hey, Zach, Dustin just mentioned DeJuan Jones there real quick, and it was noticeable yesterday how much weight. I mean, obviously he's still a massive human being, but it was noticeable how much weight he lost. We know the talent is there. I mean, he probably has first-round ability. Man, if he could stay in shape, I think there's no limit to how good he can be. What say you?
Yeah, he played 1 year of left, I think, in college, and maybe 2 or 3 games of left last year, and really over 2 years in practice, not much more than that, like an occasional fill-in just to do it. So he's learning, and he's got to hold up. I mean, both of his seasons have ended with injuries. Now, they haven't been major, but One of the other things that came out this week was the Browns remade their health and conditioning staff.
Yeah.
The team nutritionist was fired during last season. They've revamped the whole side. He looks good right now. So on one hand, it's bigger, stronger, faster season. You have to do it. But on the other hand, like you would hope that Dewan really took the second injury, took the rehab, the chance to spend the whole offseason in the building. And basically the Browns coming to him and saying, look, we signed one veteran tackle who's a backup. So we did not draft an offensive lineman. We have you under contract for 2 years, and we want you to be the left tackle. And left tackles who are even kind of good make a lot of money, right? So Dewan's opportunity is there. And we have seen, even with the limited reps and experience that I already noted, we have seen when he locks onto somebody, guys don't get around him. He has that frame. So this is a great chance for him. You know, if he stays healthy, it's not his only chance, but that's a big if. And it seems like as good a chance as anyone could ask for. And really, this is a crucial moment for the franchise too, because if your left tackle for multiple years came to you via 4th-round pick, then that's how you make up for all the picks that you gave away. Some of them anyway.
Yep.
Zach, a lot is being made about this quarterback battle in the young players, the rookies. But you've got 2 highly drafted rookies, higher drafted rookies on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Mason Graham, Carson, the kid from UCLA, the linebacker you said has been playing pretty well. Like both these guys are expected to be pretty much day one starters, correct?
Yeah. So when you ask me about size, Dustin, when you look out there and notice like Schwarzenegger's big, like he is way bigger than the other linebackers, and he was just a 1-year starter. He's learning, but he and Mason Graham are both starters for this team right away. That doesn't necessarily mean they play 90% of the snaps, and I don't think any defensive lineman does, right? Except a couple years of miles with Craig Williams. But, those guys are going to play right away, and they were drafted as such. And when Gabriel took his first snap with the ones yesterday, Judkins was the one also running back, and he's going to be the primary runner for this team sooner rather than later. How soon is up to him, pretty much, right? So, yeah, these rookies are going to play. These rookies need to play. And Bull, to go back to your question about how do these guys keep their jobs? Well, we don't speak for ownership here, clearly.
Sure.
And there's a lot of things that go on that I got no explanation for. However, like there is a way that 5 wins is a good season for this team, and obviously the quarterback is probably the top of those lists. But if like Mason Graham and Schlesinger and Judkins are players for you, and Dewan Jones as a player for you, and all of these guys are under contract when what you need is cost-controlled young players with talent and upside. Like these guys haven't done anything yet, so we can't count them. Right now, the number of those guys who are young players with a legitimate chance to me, who are under contract past this year, is very, very small. So this draft class has to provide a number of hits. And that, again, that doesn't necessarily mean this October. But if they can say, "Hey, we have our running back. We know we're not going to have JOK, but we have this stud linebacker or this emerging linebacker, and we have this rock that we need Mason Graham to be next to Myles Garrett," then all of a sudden the trajectory of everything changes because there's so many fewer questions than there are right now. And we're not even talking about any of the other questions because we're talking about the quarterbacks all the time.
Harold Fannin is another one of those rookies. A lot of people are excited about him. Joe Bitonio talked about going back to the old style Stefanski system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the old style, he ran a lot of 12 personnel, which makes me think that maybe we'll see Njoku and Fannin out there together quite a bit. What say you on that?
Yeah, Fannin, I'm really excited about him too. He's got a long way to go. Like he just was learning tight end at Bowling Green, and basically Bowling Green's playbook was like, let's just throw the ball to Harold Fannin. So he's going to have a long way to go with the blocking. But look, they're going to get him on the field. When you look at their receiving core, Harold Fannin's going to be better than some of those guys. So they're going to find ways. So yeah, I think I liked that pick. And I know in talking to other people around the league who maybe had questions about some of their other picks, people were like, they took Harold Fannin there and he wasn't going to last 5 more picks. He might not have lasted 2 more picks.
Right.
So it was a good tight end class. It was a little bit of what you want, for your team and what you're looking for. And he's not a Njoku clone because there's no Njoku clone. But if you look at the profiles of when they were drafted, what they did in college, and what their upside is, Njoku's entering the final year of his contract, and this team has invested a lot of money in him for like 8 good games.
Yep.
So this is a huge year for him. And then to have Harold Fannin waiting could end up being a really big deal.
All right, so let's talk wide receivers here. The other day, Bitonio was talking about how they're going to go back to 1965 and run the ball every play. And I'm sure that excites some Browns fans because it's a throwback type of team. But you got to throw in this league, and the Browns, haven't really had great wide receiver play over the last several years. Um, Judy had a nice year last year,
Mhm.
like a Pro Bowl type of season. It did most of his stats in about 6 games, but either way, it's
Wasn't his
this.
fault.
No, I know, and
Yeah,
he had no one throwing him the ball.
right.
But it looks like this may be a nice signing for the Browns, a nice move for the Browns to get in that contract because it was a lot of money to start. But anyway, he proved himself last year. Do you feel better about the wide receivers this year more so than last year?
Not yet. I do feel like with the little bit we saw from Cedric Tillman, shows that he can do it. We hadn't seen anything to that point, and it goes to the same thing. Was it his fault? Probably not. Judy looks really good. I think it wasn't just obviously the big games stick out, but he had never played a full season. He had never followed his big games and big weeks with other big games, and he finally did that in the second half of last year. And really, the whole offense was terrible the first 6 weeks, but he didn't have much of a training camp. He had a minor injury, and he maybe had 3 or 4 days that he did more than individual drills. Well, now he's out there in every OTA, and every single quarterback that drops back is looking for him. And I just think he's playing with a different level of confidence. So, they took a zero risk, zero guaranteed dollars chance on Deontay Johnson. We will see. They obviously have a lot invested in Njoku. Then you add Harold Fannin. They have Thrash from last year. They have DeAndre Carter, the veteran, who can be kind of a gadget player. They're going to add another wide receiver unless Deontay Johnson shows up next week at minicamp and looks like Deontay Johnson of 4 years ago, right? They're going to do it. But for now, they got to let these guys play, and they got to let Cedric Tillman's got to get healthy and get on the field and get that chemistry. If Flacco's the quarterback, the throws that Flacco can make and likes to make are the plays that Cedric Tillman can make. He's big. He's legitimately a good ball tracker, and I think that there will be some opportunities to where he's out there with the safety, and Flacco's going to give him chances to go get it.
Just following up on that, Zach, Deontay Johnson not being here for these 2 weeks is just crazy. Like, the guy is just throwing his career down the toilet, but I guess we should have seen that coming last year when good organizations cut him, including the Texans in the playoffs, because the guy was complaining about his targets. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, he's been on 5 teams since last March.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, and it's almost like to be the slot receiver on this team, at least right now, it's like fall out of bed and do it.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why he's not here. I do want to talk to him and write about him when he is here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would have thought a guy in that situation would look around and say, oh my gosh, I can roll out of bed and get 60 targets on this team. And he still might. So we'll see. But yeah, it's one of the weirder career trajectories. Like, maybe that year, I think it was 22 in Pittsburgh, maybe that wasn't what he is.
Yeah.
But I mean, we've seen for a long time the Steelers take guys in the middle rounds and produce. And then when the Steelers got rid of him, that was a sign. And then the Ravens got rid of him, and then Texas got rid of him, and the Ravens brought him back trying to get a comp pick, thinking somebody would be stupid enough to take him. The Browns were just not before the comp pick deadline.
Zach, if they do go, the veteran route to replace Deontay Johnson here, could Tyler Boyd be a good fit? I know he's kind of towards the end, but as a third receiver, could he still help?
I think that's kind of an August 15th decision, right?
Yeah, okay.
It's evaluating all of these young guys right now. Where do we need to go? And then who's realistically available? I mean, this team has shown they're not afraid of going to get veterans, older guys, and they've shown they're not afraid of an August trade if they have to make one. And so, but I think right now, certainly next week, you let these guys play. You let Deontay Johnson get in the mix, assuming he's healthy and able to. And then you come to training camp, and that's when the order starts to count. And that's when guys really earn reps for the next day. The first 3 or 4 days of camp, they will not do much that us standing on the sideline or following on Twitter will see. But then they have that mandatory day off and the pads come on. And that's when the coaches really start evaluating and start saying, okay, we're not giving reps to give them anymore. Like, we have to start getting ready, and this guy has earned some. And then can these other guys do it? So I understand how the draft went, and they couldn't add a wide receiver. They obviously, by taking that second running back and second quarterback, they showed they didn't love any of the wide receivers. So it's either Michael Woods or David Bell or Jamari Thrash does something. The chances of those are extremely slim.
Yeah.
Or it's go find someone else. And they took the first shot with Deontay Johnson, and I think eventually we'll see who the next shot will be on.
All right, Zach, let's wrap it up with this. Who is more likely to create some hijinks at Dustin's wedding? Is it Jason Lloyd? Is it Tyvis Powell? Or is it the big favorite in Vegas, Anthony Lima? Biggest hijinks.
It's Anthony Lima because he doesn't get out much anymore. So he is out of practice. He spent about 28 years practicing.
Yep.
One time I went out with him and he looked at me and he said, I'm so embarrassed that this is my life now. But like 3 years after that, he was married and he's cleaned up. So I'm a little worried about Lima, now with this 6 o'clock bedtime that he has.
Yeah.
So hopefully he gets some rest and gets some caffeine, and then we'll see.
He'll be caffeinated. We know that, Zach.
Yeah. I mean, Lima's like a wild animal that was like the king of the jungle, and then he got thrown in a zoo for a few years, and he was caged up, and now he's just escaped. The gates are open, and he's escaped.
Let me tell you guys a 100% true story that I'm not ashamed to say.
Yes,
so
please.
We're walking the dog last night, and I say to my wife, hey, I talked to Jason today. They're going to be at Dustin's wedding. She met Jason down at the NFL owners meetings. She says, oh, great.
Yeah.
You know what she said next? Is Lima going to be there?
His reputation precedes him.
It precedes himself, yeah.
Oh, my God. Zach, great stuff, man. Thanks. We'll see you next
buddy.
weekend.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Later.
There's Zac Jackson. Awesome talking with him and awesome talking with all of you. Thanks, folks, for joining. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the Bullpen. Dustin and I on every Thursday at 9 a.m. And that's it for today. Thanks to Z and Max for producing. We'll talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the Bullpen with Bull and Fox, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.